For millions of Americans, Johnny Crawford was the boy who seemed to have it all. By 13, he was an Emmy-nominated television star. Before he was old enough to vote, he was a charting recording artist and one of the most recognizable young faces in America. His future appeared limitless. But when the spotlight of childhood fame began to fade, Crawford found himself thrust into a brutal cycle of career rejection, financial instability, and personal heartbreak that would follow him for decades. A devastating health battle slowly stole the very thing that had made him famous. His final days are extremely heart-wrenching, and when you discover the tragic details, you'll never remember him the same way. John Ernest Crawford was born on March 26, 1946, in Los Angeles, California, into a family destined to produce artists. His mother, Betty, was an accomplished pianist. His father, Robert Sr., worked as an editor. His maternal grandfather, Alfred Megerlin, was a world-class violinist who had served as the first concertmaster of the New York Philharmonic. Music and performance were in Johnny's blood. At just 9 years old in 1955, Johnny secured a spot as one of the original 24 Mouseketeers on the debut season of Disney's The Mickey Mouse Club. It was the dream job for any child in America. But the triumph was short-lived. At the end of the first season, he was fired. The reason was painful. He could not learn the complex dance steps quickly enough, and the choreographers decided he was holding back the other performers. The rejection stung, but Johnny did not let it break him. He went back to work securing minor guest roles on early anthology programs like The Loretta Young Show and The Millionaire. These were not glamorous parts, sometimes only a few lines, sometimes none at all. But the work kept him in the industry and helped his family pay the bills. Then came 1958. Out of hundreds of child actors competing for a single part, Johnny's expressive face and natural emotional vulnerability won him the definitive role of Mark McCain on the ABC Western series The Rifleman. The show was built around the relationship between a widowed homesteader named Lucas McCain, played by Chuck Connors, and his young son, Mark. The chemistry between the two actors was immediate and undeniable. Viewers believed the connection was real. In 1959, at the mere age of 13, Johnny earned a Primetime Emmy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor in a Dramatic Series. A child actor was being recognized alongside adults who had been working in the industry for decades. The nomination itself validated everything he had worked for since being fired from the Mickey Mouse Club. The bond between Johnny and Chuck Connors was not just for the cameras. Off-screen, Connors became a father figure and protector. He took Johnny to dinners, mentored him on adult life, and fiercely shielded him from the typical Hollywood exploitation that destroyed so many child stars. Connors treated Johnny like a son, not a co-star. To truly embody his Western persona, Johnny underwent rigorous physical training from real-world cowboys. He learned to ride horses with confidence and became an incredibly skilled competitive trick roper under the guidance of Hollywood horse wrangler Buster Troe. Simultaneously, Johnny launched a highly successful pop recording career with Delphi Records. Between 1961 and 1964, he achieved several top 40 hits on the Billboard Hot 100, including his signature track, Cindy's Birthday, which peaked at number 8 in 1962. He was a television star, a recording artist, and a teenage heartthrob all at once. But behind the awards and hit records, Johnny was already facing battles that no one could see. In 1963, the exact year The Rifleman ceased production, the 17-year-old Crawford collided with a harsh industry barrier. He had physically outgrown the wide-eyed child aesthetic that had made him famous. The boy who had played Mark McCain was now a young man with broader shoulders, a deeper voice, and a face that no longer fit the roles he had once dominated. But casting directors flatly refused to see him as a mature romantic lead. They saw a child actor who had aged out of his usefulness. The roles that had come easily at 13 were no longer available, and the roles he was now eligible for went to other actors. The financial situation was even worse, because The Rifleman was produced during an era of predatory early network contracts. Crawford's union agreements guaranteed him absolutely zero financial residual payments for future reruns. The show that had made him famous, that had been sold into syndication around the world and would continue airing for decades, generated not a single dollar of back-end profit for the actor who had helped make it successful. As the show entered decades of highly lucrative global syndication, Crawford did not receive a dime. Network executives and production companies got rich while Crawford struggled to pay his rent. The psychological toll of severe typecasting proved equally damaging. For the next 2 decades, his iconic association with Mark McCain systematically hurt his adult career. Casting offices routinely rejected him for contemporary dramas or comedies because they believed audiences would only ever see him as the little boy from the Western. Starved for meaningful work, his once glorious resume deteriorated into fleeting guest spots on shows like Little House on the Prairie and Murder, She Wrote. These were scraps thrown to an actor no longer considered relevant. He was forced to rely on regional nostalgia conventions just to maintain professional dignity and income, signing autographs for fans who remembered him as the boy from the Rifleman while trying not to think about what might have been. The personal side of his life was no less painful. During his peak fame at Hollywood High School, he fell deeply in love with a fellow student named Charlotte McKenna. She was not part of the entertainment industry, which was part of her appeal. She saw him as Johnny, not Mark McCain. But the punishing schedules of his music recordings and studio demands created immense personal friction. The relationship ended in a complete and painful breakup. They went their separate ways and lived entirely separate lives for 25 years. The two miraculously reconnected in 1990 and married in 1995, a reunion that seemed like the ending of a Hollywood movie. In 1990, driven by a deep passion for musical preservation, Crawford founded the Johnny Crawford Dance Orchestra, a big band jazz group dedicated to authentic 1920s swing arrangements. Because he lacked corporate backing, Crawford poured vast amounts of his own rapidly dwindling personal savings into the project. He purchased original vintage sheet music at collector's prices. He self-funded the salaries of up to 16 professional musicians. The orchestra was a beautiful artistic achievement and a massive financial burden. The creative outlet that should have brought him joy was slowly draining his bank account dry. In the mid-2010s, friends and musicians within his dance orchestra began noticing highly alarming changes. Johnny had always possessed an encyclopedic memory for complex 1920s musical charts and silent film history. He could recall the name of a song from 1927, the key it was written in, and the names of the musicians who had first recorded it without hesitation. But now something was wrong. He began forgetting lyrics on stage, staring blankly at the microphone while the band played on. He struggled to find basic words during live performances. The musicians looked at each other with worry. They knew something was happening to their leader, but no one wanted to say it out loud. After years of private medical evaluations, his official team and the television network MeTV made a devastating public announcement in 2019. Johnny Crawford had been formally diagnosed with severe, irreversible Alzheimer's disease. The news landed like a physical blow to fans who had followed his career for 6 decades. The boy who had captured their hearts on the Rifleman, the teenager who had topped the Billboard charts, was slowly losing his mind to a disease that had no cure and no mercy. The aggressive neurodegenerative progression attacked Crawford's brain with shocking speed. The man who had once delivered nuanced, emotionally complex performances on national television suffered a near-total loss of speech. He became entirely unable to construct full sentences or articulate basic thoughts to his loved ones. The words that had been his livelihood, his scripts, his song lyrics, his conversations with fans, all drained away like water through a cracked vessel. The cognitive decline completely destroyed his ability to perform. He could no longer lead his beloved musicians. He could not remember the songs. He could not keep time. He could no longer attend the fan conventions that had been his emotional lifeline. The disease forced him into total isolation from the public eye. As his disorientation turned into a profound safety risk, his family faced an impossible decision. He had wandered away from the house on more than one occasion, confused and frightened, unable to remember where he lived. He was permanently moved into a specialized high-security full-time memory care facility in Los Angeles. The former child star who had been nominated for an Emmy at 13 who had performed for millions of fans around the world, now spent his days in a locked facility, cared for by nurses who did not know he had once been famous. Despite a lifetime spent in the entertainment industry, Crawford's modest net worth, estimated at roughly $500,000, was completely obliterated in months by the staggering costs of around-the-clock specialized memory care. The same industry that had profited from his image for decades offered him nothing. No pension, no health benefits, no assistance of any kind. His family watched their savings drain away. With the family facing imminent financial ruin, his lifelong friend Paul Peterson stepped in. Peterson, a former child star of the Donna Reed Show, had founded a child actor advocacy group called A Minor Consideration. He launched a public GoFundMe campaign to crowdsource the money required for Crawford's monthly care bills. The response from fans was immediate and emotional. People who had grown up watching the Rifleman donated what they could. The campaign raised enough money to keep him in his facility, but it was just enough to keep him alive. The financial desperation grew so severe that fans organized a formal benefit and silent auction at the historic Joel and Frances McRae Ranch to secure emergency cash. The irony was not lost on anyone. An industry that generated billions could not be bothered to take care of one of its own. It took strangers passing a hat to keep Johnny Crawford from dying in a county facility. His case drew attention to a long-standing problem. Many of the industry's earliest child stars were never given financial protections needed to support them after fame faded. His case was particularly painful. An Emmy-nominated icon entirely dependent on charity just to survive his final years. The studios that had made millions from the Rifleman reruns offered nothing. Only the fans showed up. Only the fans cared. When the global pandemic struck in 2020, Crawford was completely trapped inside his memory care facility under strict quarantine rules. He was cut off from any direct physical comforting touch from visitors. His wife Charlotte could not hold his hand without excessive precautions. He was mostly alone in a room with masked nurses whose faces were hidden and voices muffled. He did not understand why the people he loved were not coming to see him. He could not remember there was a global pandemic. Despite all safety measures, Crawford caught the infection anyway. His body initially cleared the primary infection, a small miracle. But the illness ravaged his already frail respiratory system and broke whatever physical strength he had preserved. In his severely weakened post-infection state, Crawford contracted a secondary case of pneumonia, an aggressive infection attacking his already battered lungs. His compromised lungs could not fight off another invader. As his organs began to fail, he was rushed from his memory care center to a skilled nursing facility. He was moved one final time to a smaller specialized care home in Los Angeles, chosen to be as close as possible to his wife. Charlotte wanted to be near him. She wanted to hold his hand. On Thursday, April 29, 2021, Johnny Crawford took his final breath at age 75. His devoted wife held his hand continuously until the very end. The cruel pandemic rules meant that even in death, the family could not gather as they wanted. Visitors were barred from entering his room during his final days. Following his passing, his body was cremated. His ashes were interred at Sunset Hills Memorial Park in Apple Valley, San Bernardino County, California. There is no grand monument, just a simple marker and the memory of a boy who had once made the world fall in love with him. He was survived by his wife Charlotte Samko, his two stepdaughters Brenda and Jamie, his older actor brother Robert Crawford Jr., and his sister Nance. Global tributes poured in from thousands of fans and Western historians. They praised him for his acting, his music, and his character. Even when Alzheimer's had stolen everything else, even when he could no longer speak or remember his own name, he still had that trademark gentle sparkle in his eyes. The disease that stole his mind could not steal his legacy. The industry that abandoned him could not erase the memories he gave to millions. Johnny Crawford was gone, but the boy from the Rifleman lives forever. His story remains a heartbreaking reminder of how Hollywood treats its youngest stars, a conversation that continues today as advocates push for better protections for child performers.